Welcome back, Monolito here. Got a couple more bourbons I'm going to talk about. And this is going to be kind of a distillery visit slash bourbon review for Garrison Brothers. So I picked up a couple bottles from them last weekend. We went and took a tour. It was actually a very extensive tour, about an hour and a half. It was actually really nice too. We got there, checked in the tasting room. They loaded everybody up on, for some reason I didn't take a picture of the trailer, but they had a Jeep and a truck there, and they had about 12 or 16 foot long flatbed trailers that they had benches built in, and everybody loaded up onto the trailers. They drove us up to the top of the hill to where the distillery was at, and where they do the fermentation and their rick houses and all that stuff, or their barrel houses. And the tour was, again, like an hour and a half inside each area. They kind of went into great detail of, their process, and they let us taste the I guess you call it the mash, basically as it's fermenting, which was really nice. It tasted like shredded wheat with a little bit of sugar in there. Almost like if you let the shredded wheat just sit there and soak up the milk and get a little mushy. With a slight sweetness to it. So I liked it. Not everybody liked it. We also got to taste their new make in the distillery, which also was very nice. It wasn't harsh at all. It had a nice little sweetness to it, and then you can almost taste that mash bill in there. So it kind of tasted like the fermented mash, except without the chunks in it, if you want to call it. It had a chunky mouthfeel, the mash, because it was basically like having a mouthful of shredded wheat. But the new make was nice and clear and clean, and actually pretty refreshing. I liked it. And then towards the end of the tour, we got to taste their straight bourbon. So they do have a few different. They only make bourbon, and they have a few different expressions, like the cowboy, and then they have the double barreled, if you want to call it that, which I have one of those. Or no, I don't have that one. Sorry, that's the one that I wanted, but I didn't get. So the two that I was able to get, and they were pretty pricey. These are 375 milliliter bottles. The first one is the Garrisons Honeydew. So this is a honey infused bourbon. This is the only bourbon they make that's 40% ABV or 80 proof. All the rest of them are higher proof. And then the other one was the Estacado. And this one is finished in port barrels. The other one that I wanted, I forgot the name of it, but it's twice barreled basically. They age it for 2 years, and then they put it in new barrels and age it for another 2 years, I think is what they said on the website, but they were sold out of that one. Now these were $70 each, so that was a little pricey. Their 750 milliliter bottles ranged anywhere from $125 to $150, and I think the cowboy one was like almost $200. They didn't have any there, but it's a 1 year release or single release every year, and I think it's pretty close to $200 a bottle, so it's a little pricey. So this was all I was able to get, was these two little bottles. I did want a Glencairn glass, but they were completely sold out of Glencairn glasses, so maybe I'll have to go back and get one, or I'll just order one online. They have an online store. So, and as I'm going through this, I'm going to throw up a bunch of pictures. They did not allow any video, although there were people taking video, but I went ahead and followed the rules and just took pictures. So there's a bunch of pictures to take. But it was a really nice tour. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the more extensive tours. At the end, when we did the tasting, the thing that I walked away really with was, because all the other tours, they pretty much talk about the same. Their mash bills and the fermentation and the aging and all that stuff. But at the end, when we did the tasting, she went through this little ritual that none of the other distilleries, none of them ever talked about it or went through this little ritual. And besides Balcones, which I've done a tour there, they were the only ones that used actual Glencairn glasses for the tasting. Everybody else uses these little plastic cups or whatever, which you don't get quite the same nose and taste out of them. So when we did the tasting, we went into one of their rick houses, and they have this beautiful bar there. I mean, it's a huge, beautiful bar. They had all the Glencairns laid out for us. We went and picked up a Glencairn, and then what she had us do, which I've started doing on my other tastings, is you swirl it around a little bit, and then when you nose it, which I've been doing this part in the nose and the mouth at the same time, so you breathe in your nose and mouth at the same time. And she said that to do that 3 times. And you do that, and what that does is it builds up, which it just did, builds up saliva in your mouth. And then when you have that saliva built up, you don't swallow it. Now is when you take a sip, and you mix the whiskey with the saliva, let it roll all over your tongue, and let it sit there for a minute or so. Don't swallow it right away, just kind of roll it around, mix up the saliva with the whiskey, and then swallow it. And that makes for an easier swallowing experience. So especially if it's a high, this is the honeydew. It's not so bad because it's 40 ABV, but their other stuff is higher. Like the Estacado is a 53.5 or 107 proof, and some of the other ones are even higher. They're barrel proof. And that really, when you do that, it really brings out the flavors of the whiskey. And I thought that was really cool when she showed us that, because everyone else is just like, oh, just smell it and take a sip. But she really went into detail about it. It was basically a whole ritual. And this is delicious. I'm going to talk about this in a second. And that was the end of the tour. And we only got to taste their straight bourbon. We didn't get to taste anything else other than the new make. But they do flights at the tasting room and things like that. They have a really big property. It's a beautiful place to visit. If you ever get a chance, go visit Garrison Brothers. They're in High, Texas. That was one of our stops last weekend. We went to Blanco. I stopped at Ben Milam. We went here to Garrison Brothers, and then we went to a rum distillery, High Rum, and then had lunch in Johnson City. So it was a really nice weekend. So on the honeydew, as you can see there, got a nice color there, and even for 40%, it sticks to the glass real nice. And of course, I'm using my Magnificent Bastard Glencairn for this one. Pretty good legs on this one, even for a 80 proof, 40 ABV. On the nose, this one is honey infused. So this is a Texas straight bourbon. So it's aged at least 2 years. I believe on the website they said they aged it for 4 years, but I don't remember. I should have looked at that again. But what they did was they had their bourbon. This is their straight bourbon, aged, and then they take used bourbon barrels. They kind of cut them up into squares or cubes, and they send them off to this company. And what the company does is kind of soaks them. It's a proprietary type process. They didn't go into the details of it, but they soak the wood in honey until the honey is basically inside the wood. So the wood has actually soaked in the honey. Then what they do, they put the bourbon into their stainless steel reservoirs, and then they put that honey infused wood in there for I want to say it was 3 months or something like that. I can't remember how long it was. There was a lot of information on that tour. She really gave us a lot of information, so a lot of it I'm going off of memory. But then they let that just kind of marry with their bourbon, and then they bottle it, proof it at 40% or 80 proof, and then they put the little yellow wax on it. They have different waxes for their different bourbons, but they do wax all of them, and then put I don't know if you can see it on this one too well, stamp a star on the top there. So really, really cool. So on the nose, so again, swirl it. You get the honey on the nose. The proof, it's 80 proof, so sorry about that. So it's not, it definitely doesn't burn your nose at all. It's almost no alcohol smell or alcohol burn on the nose. You definitely get the honey. I mean, you can tell there was honey infused. And then your normal bourbon notes. I'm not going to go through them all again. Caramels, things like that. It smells like a bourbon with honey, and it's very, very good. This is a delicious bourbon. Again, there, kind of see the sticking to the glass. It tastes really good. Goes down so, smooth, I guess, if you want to call it smooth. It's really easy sipper. There's no burn at all. This doesn't even numb the tongue. It's just, this is really nice. It'd probably be good in cocktails. I'm not really a cocktail drinker, so I don't know all the different bourbon or whiskey cocktails that are out there. Usually if I drink a cocktail, it's basically going to be Coke or Dr. Pepper inside of a bourbon or some other type of whiskey. That's about it. Maybe I should try some. But this is, it's got a nice sweetness to it. I don't really taste the honey. I can smell it, but I'm not getting honey on the palate. So I'm not tasting that honey, but there is a sweetness to it, which could be from that honey. Very, very good bourbon. Now the other one, the Estacado, this one is 53.5%, 107 proof. Again, a 375 milliliter bottles for $70. And all of their bottles are signed by somebody at the distillery. So there's a signature there. It might be the owner himself. I forgot his first name, but of course the last name is Garrison. Might be one of the distillers. It might be, they have a guy there, a really funny guy, they call him Coach. He's in charge of the bottling and the waxing and all that. He might sign it. It gets whoever's available at the time to sign it, but every bottle gets signed. But this is actually a team up there, or a collaboration with Estacado Llano Winery. So in Llano, Texas, there's a winery. I guess it's the Estacado family that's had this winery for quite a long time. And basically what they did was they shipped Garrison Brothers some of their port barrels. Garrison Brothers, what they did is they aged their bourbon. Again, I believe it said 4 years for the bourbon to age, and then another 9 months in the port casks, or the port barrels. So the bourbon was aged in 15-gallon barrels, but the port barrels were the larger barrels, the 55, 53-gallon barrels. So I think they said it was something like 15 barrels into 8 or something to that effect. Again, it's on their website. They're really open with their information, minus I think the mash bill. I don't remember seeing the exact mash bill on their website, and it's not on the bottle. But they are basically grain to glass, so there's no sourced juice in any of these bottles. This is all from Garrison Brothers, and I believe they said next year, I think starting, or maybe sometime in this year, they're going to be 100% Texas made. So all of their grains are going to come from Texas. Everything's going to be done in Texas. So they make really good stuff, and they're really proud of it. It is pricey, but if you want to drink good stuff, you have to pay for it. So let's go ahead and taste this and nose this. I've got this featuring the My Bourbon Journey Glencairn. Another great YouTube channel. So color on this one, you can see there, it's got a nice reddish brown tint to it, a little darker than the honey. And then of course that sticks to the glass real nice. Got nice legs there. The honey, going back to the honey real quick, the finish is not very long, so there's not a long finish on this bourbon, but it is nice to sip on. If you want something that's not, you just kind of want to relax, you're not trying hard to get notes and things like that. You just want to sip on something. This is a really good sipping bourbon. So again, this is 53.5% ABV, 107 proof. So on the nose, you get the proof, a little bit of alcohol on there, not so much of a burn, but you kind of get that ethanol type note that goes into your nose. Kind of a dark fruity note, caramel and cinnamon. It is making my mouth water. Yeah, and it kind of has a rich smell to it. It's like it's thick, almost syrupy. Not like it smells like syrup, but just kind of like just like it's meaty. All right, let's taste that. So you get the 107 proof, you get the little tingle on the tongue. You get that all the way through to the back. Almost like an anise black licorice, but very, very light. Not like it tastes like you just ate a black jelly bean or a licorice stick. It's very, very light on the back end, that flavor. It's not sweet. It's kind of hard to explain. It almost tastes dark. I'm like a dark fruit, or like a liquefied, really liquid syrup. Just tastes dark. I don't know how else to explain that. It's good though. That might be the port. I'm not a port drinker, so I don't know. I mean, I've had some port, and usually port kind of tastes like it's kind of raisiny, black licorice type to me, but I'm not getting the raisins. Yeah, it's just like dark fruit. And then your normal bourbon notes, and it's still, the finish is still kind of there, real light. Get a nice little tingling burn coming out of my nose. I'll definitely have to live with this a little bit more. Try to get more of the nuances out of it. I'm still getting a little bit of that. Of course, there's that barrel spice note, and then there's the tingly still from the alcohol there on the mid and the back of my palate, on the tongue. But very good bourbon. They make good stuff, and they're really proud of it, and they should be. I had a lot of fun there. It was very informative. It's a really nice place to visit. Sometimes you have the only downside that I seen when I was there, or that I experienced, was that it was a really large group. There was probably 40 of us or so, and just sometimes when you get large groups, especially if they've been drinking before, you get some of the people that are just don't really care that there's other people there, so they make a lot of noise, talk a lot while people are trying to talk. So, but other than that, I had a great time and great whiskey. So if you've ever had any of the Garrison brothers, their bourbons, because that's all they make is bourbon, hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think, what kind of notes you got out of them, if you like them, if you don't like them, if you've been to High, Texas. There's a few other things down there in High, a lot of wineries, things like that. But it's a really nice place to visit. Not a lot of population. It's all the cityscapes. There's none of that. It's basically like backcountry roads. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. You guys have a great one, and cheers.